Hello, everyone. I am Jenny, and welcome to another episode of Dose of Pharma. I'm thrilled to be joined by today's guest, Rose Fida. Rose is the Senior Director of Research and Development and the head of the China and Japan Project Management at CSL, a global biotechnology company. She has had extensive experience in the biotech field and acts as a liaison for the opportunities presented in China and Japan for the development of novel medical therapies and vaccinations, as well as other biologics that improve health and well-being. So I'll now pass the time on to Rose to introduce herself to us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rose. As Jenny has mentioned, I'm the Senior Director of R&D Governance and Head of China and Japan Project Management for CSL Limited. I've been working at CSL for 12 years now, and I've been working in the industry for about 23 years, and I have a very unique role at CSL, which is really interesting, and I'm happy to share it with all of you today.
All right, thank you so much for your lovely introduction. Kicking us off, your LinkedIn profile does have quite an impressive array of various different degrees, which includes Bachelor of Science, Physiology, and a PhD in Medicine as well. So was medicine and PhD always the end goal here, and what was going through your mind as you made your way through these different degrees?
That's a really good question, and I think you might be surprised by my answer because nothing was going through my mind at the time. Went into a Bachelor of Science thinking I wanted to be a scientist, which I did, and I finished my Bachelor of Science. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do after that, so I got the marks to do honours, and I thought, why not? So I went on to do an honours degree in the physiology department at Monash University in Clayton, which was really exciting. I was working in a lab that focused on gastrointestinal motility, and they did electrophysiology and pharmacology, and it was really exciting. So I thought this was interesting. I finished my honours year with a Bachelor of Science honours, but I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And luckily enough, I was offered a PhD position. I did get a scholarship. And so once again, it was not a conscious choice. I just went, yeah, okay, I'm going to do this. Now, in retrospect, I'm not sure I would have done it because a PhD is hard work. It is not a light undertaking, but I'm really glad I did it. I learned so much during my PhD. It was in the same lab, again, looking at gastrointestinal motility, specifically colonic contractions in mice. It was a very interesting topic. And as I said, I learned a lot, and I learned a lot of foundational skills, which really set me up well for my first job. So no conscious decision. I actually was one of those students who didn't really know what they wanted to do. And I just fell into honours. I fell into a PhD, but it all worked out. It worked out perfectly. So I'm glad it happened that way.
Yeah, it's actually great hearing you say that, because I think a lot of us are pressured by the fact that we need to know what we want to do right now or in a couple of years' time. And most of us are in a space where we're kind of just in it and to see and to figure things out for the future later down the track. So it's definitely good to see that kind of went along with the flow and you got to where you really wanted to be, and you're in a role that you really, really enjoy, Rose. That's so nice.
Exactly. And that's a really good way to look at it, is just go with the flow. It's hard to know. Science is such a big area. There is so many things that we can do. And as a student, looking back, I didn't realise the scope of what you could do with a science degree. And, now down the track, I can see all those opportunities. But as a student, I couldn't. And I think just going with the flow and seeing what opportunities arise is a really good attitude, because you figure out quickly what you don't like. And so then you can change, and if you don't like something, you can move on to something else, rather than saying, I really want to do this, and closing out any other opportunities which might be interesting and beneficial.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, Rose. So moving on to your role in CSL that we're very excited to hear about, how would you describe the importance and the nature of your role in research and development in the company and as a position as a leader of the team as well?
So, as I said before, my role is kind of unique. It was a role that was actually created 3 years ago when we did a bit of a reorganisation within the R&D division. And so I was previously in a role where I was responsible for the early development projects, which is that projects that are coming out of the research department and moving into the development phase, getting ready to go into the clinic. So when we did a bit of a reorg and we realigned our R&D division by therapeutic areas, that role didn't exist. So a new role was created, which was R&D governance. And I was interested in kind of, not sure what this exactly was, but I thought, let's go for it. So I was appointed to that role, and one of my first tasks was to really overhaul R&D governance for our projects. And governance is so important in drug development because drug development is very expensive. Development of drugs can take 10 to 15 years. It costs hundreds of millions of dollars to develop a drug from research to registration. And along the way, we have to make decisions on whether to progress projects or not. So having robust R&D governance is really important to ensure that project decisions are made in a timely manner, that the project decisions are robust, and also that they're clear and they're well communicated. So governance is really important for how we manage projects. It's an important part of what we do. That's not really sciencey, but it is part of business, how we run a business. So that was interesting and great. And immediately, as soon as I got into that role and started overhauling the governance process, I got an add-on to my job. Wasn't asked for. It was just, Rose is good at this, we'll give it to Rose. And that was managing the project managers in both China and Japan. So we've got sites in both Tokyo and in Shanghai, predominantly in China, and have project managers there that manage projects in both those countries. And so I was appointed. I wasn't appointed. Part of my other bit of my role was managing those project managers, which is something that's very close to my heart, project management. And again, it's really important to manage our projects properly, and project managers do that. They oversee and bring all of the functions together, all the experts together, and make sure that the project strategy is being aligned and followed and the project's being delivered. So that was the other part of my job, which is not that, that is in my title. And then after that, I got another part added on to my job, which is really super interesting and I've really enjoyed. And that is I'm responsible for collating R&D content for external communications. So, for example, when we do our half-year results announcements, our full-year results announcements, our annual report, we prepare R&D content, and I'm responsible for pulling that information together and making it presentable, making it digestible. And it was something very new to me, but it's been something I've discovered, a creative side that I never knew I had, which is great. So that's served me well as an undiscovered skill. And, I've been doing that now for 3 years. We have just started preparing our annual report for FY 23-24. And, I'm really proud of what we've done over the last 3 years for our annual report. And the other big event that CSL does is annually we have an R&D investor briefing. It's usually in October, November. And we do a 2-hour presentation to the analysts and investors in the market. And again, I'm responsible for the logistics and operations of pulling that together, and also for working with the senior leaders, our very senior leaders, who are the presenters, and pulling slide decks and content together for that. So it's a new part of my job, but again, a different part of being a scientist, because you do need to understand the scientific content And I've loved it. It's been fabulous. It is fabulous.
Yeah, I can very clearly see your passion for it, and I think it's definitely really nice going into something that's not pure 100% science. A lot about people management, and it's a new role as well, which is very nice because I think you get to shape how this role looks for the people who come into your role in the future for you to pass down as well.
Exactly.
So very, very lovely to hear. So now that you've shared things that excite you about your role, I want to talk a little bit about the challenges that you might face in this position. So if you want to share?
The challenges I face in this role, well, there's always challenges. I think people, as a people manager, can be challenging.
Yeah, for sure.
Being a people manager can be difficult sometimes. Being a people leader can be difficult. You have to set a really good example. You have to set expectations. Managing people sometimes requires, having difficult conversations. So you need to have courage. You need to know how to approach those difficult conversations well. And, it's challenging, but it's part of being a manager sometimes. So that can be, I find that challenging at times. The other challenges, I think, and I think this is with every sort of job as a manager or and even as a scientist, it's, the admin side of it. And when I say admin, it's like as a scientist, you have to write your lab notes into your lab books. And, as a project manager, you need to write minutes for meetings and you need to maintain your schedules and your budget. And as a manager of a department, you need to manage a budget and you need to manage objectives and all sorts of different things and things that need to be done. But after so many years, I don't find them stimulating, but you just have to do it. Every job, there's the really exciting stuff. And then there's the things that you must do that need to be done that aren't really that exciting. So it's admin stuff. And I hate budgets. I really hate budgets.
Yeah, it's a necessary evil, but all a part of the role, unfortunately. Well, you've got the good things and you've got the challenges as well.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah,
it's not all roses, let's put it that way. It's not all, fun every day.
As with all roles, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Thank you for mentioning that. So you have talked about the things that excite you, the things that challenge you, and both as well. So what drug projects in particular has been very near and dear to your heart during your time in this position?
It's been a while since I've actually managed projects because I'm not close to the projects anymore. My role is at a different role, overseeing governance. Even with my China and Japan portfolios, there's project managers that are actually delivering the projects. I'm at a distance to it. But in the past, I've worked on projects, some really cool things. Even as a scientist, I worked on, at a different company, I worked on some really cool things. So I think more recently, there is no particular project because I'm at a distance to it. But the good thing about my role is I actually now have a portfolio view. So I have a view of the entire R&D portfolio at CSL. And, I find that really exciting to understand all of our different projects across our 6 therapeutic areas. We have 4 platforms. We have sites all over the world, and understanding what we do across the entire portfolio is really interesting for me now. So I've deliberately chosen jobs where I am not focused on a single project or a single function, because I like that overview and I like to learn new things, and this gives me an opportunity to understand so many different things across the portfolio. So I'm more of a generalist, I suppose, as opposed to a subject matter expert, and I've done that deliberately because I like to be constantly learning about new things. So I didn't really answer your question, but at least it gives you an indication of where my mind is at with my job.
Yeah, something pointed out that's really nice is I think as scientists or anyone really, lifelong learning is really a goal here and something that we would all have to do. And to always stimulate our minds is something that's very, very exciting and a part of every role as well, to keep improving.
Exactly. And I think as scientists are learners. They love knowledge. They're always looking for, new things, new ideas, innovation. And I love that. I love the fact that 23 years down the track, I can still learn new things. It's keeps it interesting.
Very lovely. So, with your management of the China and Japan branch, could you go into a little bit of depth of what kind of goals you have for the next 5 to 10 years or decades to come?
Yeah, so Japan, we've been, CSL has had a Japan office now for about 11 to 12 years. So, about the time I started, we started building our R&D footprint in Japan, and that office is very established. We have got a whole pile of products that we have registered in Japan for Japanese patients, and it's a long list, so I'm not going to go through all the products we have in Japan. And we continue to register all of our products that are coming through the pipeline into the Japanese market. So it's well established in Japan. It's just part of what we do. It's not any different to how we would work in the US or how we would register drugs in the US or the UK or Australia. So China is we have an R&D footprint in Shanghai. We do have a couple of people in Beijing and Hong Kong and in Wuhan. We do have a plasma manufacturing facility in Wuhan. And our R&D team in China is small. It is a new, it's a relatively new space for CSL, but we are making really good progress from an R&D perspective. We are working on 2 projects in particular in China. One is Idelvion, which is a recombinant factor 9 therapy to treat haemophilia B. And the other one is Afstilla, which is a recombinant factor 8 product to treat patients with haemophilia A. And we're getting close to starting clinical trials for both of those products in China. It's a new space for us, and we're making progress, and it's really interesting. So, it'd be great if we could, in the coming years, be able to register those products and others for patients in China.
Thank you so much for sharing. Very lovely hearing how we can bring these things and how these processes are run in foreign countries as well. On the topic of that, how do you find collaborating with the unique and different local healthcare systems in China and in Japan? As well as that, why do you think it is important that we're branching out to other countries?
So we have developed really good relationships with the PMDA in Japan, which is the Pharmaceuticals and Medical Device Agency in Japan. Over the 12 years that we've been working to develop products for the Japan market, we have established a great relationship with that agency, and bringing new novel products to patients. There's always discussions with the agencies of what we need to do, what patients to target, all sorts of different discussions that we have with the agencies, and we've established a great relationship with the PMDA. In China, we have to liaise with the CDE, the China Drug Evaluation, it's the China Centre for Drug Evaluation. And again, new for us, we have been, we're liaising with them, and we'll liaise more and more as we bring hopefully more products into the China market. So in these countries where we haven't got a big presence, it's really about establishing those relationships with the agencies, with government agencies. There's a lot of unique requirements in China for drug development and drug registration, and we need to understand all those regulations and requirements, and having good relationships with those agencies helps us understand what we need to do. Developing products for the China market is very different to developing products in other regions, because they do have some very unique regulations and requirements. So it's understanding and navigating those things.
Yeah, thank you so much for the response. I think it is very important. I think with anything, if you're doing it at a different country where there's different policies and processes, it's all going to be a long road to learning about these processes and seeing how you can best follow them. Yeah, as well as innovating and making improvements. Yeah,
and helping patients at the end of the day.
For sure.
We've got products that can help patients all over the world. And so accessing these markets is important for patients to have access to novel therapies that are often life-saving or life-changing.
For sure. How do you think these processes would differ a little bit to how things are done in Australia? If you could comment a little bit about those.
Oh, that would be a whole other podcast. It's
Mm,
totally, the TG we liaise with the TGA here in Australia,
mm,
and CSL is an Australian company, so we've been working with the TGA forever, and we understand how to register drugs. We understand the
mm.
requirements that the TGA needs. So it's just, I think it's China is new. It's new
Yep.
for us. It's new for a lot of multinational companies. So
Mm,
it's just, if we talk in 10 years' time, I'll be saying, no, we're established, we understand, we've
mm,
got products there. So it's just a new market that we are entering.
mm.
So I won't go into all the
That's okay. For sure. Definitely very
very
excited to see.
technical.
Yeah, very excited to see the developments that can be made in the next few years and the coming decades as well. Very exciting for you as well, let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you choose to be involved in managing projects in China and Japan specifically? Because from our research, we know that CSL also has so many other locations around the world, like Germany, Netherlands, Italy, Spain, Switzerland, UK, and the US as well. Yeah.
No, I did not choose that. Again, this is me going with the flow.
Mm,
I actually have to say that most of my job changes have been opportunistic. I think all except one have been opportunistic. And as I said, when I got the R&D governance role, this China and Japan piece was added on. It made sense because I've worked in project management. I am actually still in project management, and I've managed people. And I'm in the region. So, China is at best, depending on the daylight savings, 3 or 4 hours, 2 to 4 hours, behind us, and Japan is
yeah.
1 or 2 hours behind. So having a manager in this region makes it easier for those project managers in China and Japan, rather than having a manager in Europe or in the US, for example. Same time zone, they can reach me quickly in their business
Mm,
hours. And I've got experience in project management and across a lot of those programs. So, no, it was no, it wasn't a choice, but I'm thankful that
mm.
they trusted me to do it, because it has been a learning curve for me as well.
Yes,
But
so
again,
sure.
that's what makes it interesting and exciting.
Oh, wow, that is very, very exciting. Jumping into a new space and really discovering it for yourself and finding that you do enjoy what you do is so
Yeah.
lovely to hear. Yeah, so moving on, we know that the recent COVID-19 pandemic has impacted so many areas of our lives and not only shifted the ways we work, it's also shifted the ways we interact and how we view our healthcare system as well. So, with this global pandemic, there has also been an increased awareness and demand for better healthcare products and procedures alike. How has this impacted your role, and have you seen any trends or changes emerge from this pandemic?
So the pandemic was world changing, as we
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Um, and especially here in Australia, we went into a very long lockdown in Melbourne. I think it was world beating lockdown.
Well, well, longest, yeah.
It was the longest in the world. And we were all working from home. Now,
Mm,
the good thing about what we do as drug developers, as pharmaceutical scientists, and all the roles that we have running a pharmaceutical company, is that we still need to develop drugs. There is still a need for people to have pharmaceuticals. There's still people that have ongoing issues, diseases that need to be treated. So during the pandemic, we still worked. Now, we worked from home, most of us.
mm,
A lot of people that needed to be in the manufacturing plants needed to go in, but obviously there were strict protocols, because we still do need to continue to manufacture drugs.
mm,
And so it was coming out of that post-pandemic. We're back in the office now. Maybe we're not back in the office full time. So I think, as with any other industry, there's still this hybrid work from home, work in the office approach, which is different. But then with the role that I do and the role of project managers and other SMEs that work on project teams, their teams are global. And so oftentimes they're not interacting face to face with their team members. And this was even before the pandemic. So it wasn't a huge adjustment for most of us, because we were doing a lot of virtual and global calls at all sorts of hours of the day. And you adjust to that. That's part of the job, working for a global company. And so coming out of the pandemic, that hybrid work from home, half work in the office approach is actually not that different. So for us, it's not a huge change in how we were working before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and now, aside from the fact that pre-pandemic we probably spent more time in the office than we did at home. So things just kept going, which was a good thing during the pandemic. It's good to have, a lot of people weren't able to work because everything literally was closed down. So we were fortunate to be able to continue to work through that time. And, I'm grateful for that. And, but it's not that different, I don't think.
That's great, actually. I think being able to survive through that period has been challenging, but also an accomplishment for everyone who's gone through it.
It was. Yeah. It was definitely a very challenging period, probably a once-in-a-lifetime experience for all of us. Yeah. When you consider that last pandemic was back in 1914 when the Spanish hit, right? Hopefully it's another century or more before something like that happens again.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Hopefully never again.
Hopefully never again. We don't want that. That it was not, and I'm not saying that from the fact that we were all locked down, but, there was so many lives lost to COVID. It was not, it was awful.
Yeah, definitely will go down in history as, terrifying few years for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So from the perspective of uni students now, Rose, what is some advice that you can offer us or any graduates or anyone in the field working as a scientist already, if they want to do research and development or maybe governance even in the future? What tips and advice would you have for them? Yeah.
So I'll come back to my first response, and that is just, I think you summed up and said, go with the flow. I think that's perfect. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I was doing my bachelor's. I speak to a lot of students, and the theme that I'm always hearing is, I don't know what to do. What shall I do? And I always say, I don't know, because I didn't know either. So I just say to students, try not to, I think if you really know what you want to do, fabulous, that's great. For those of us that didn't know what they wanted to do, I always just say, just keep every door open, keep every opportunity in mind. When you finish your bachelor's, honours, master's, PhD, whatever it is, if you still don't know, go for something, get a job. My first job was as a pharmacokineticist. I didn't even know what it meant when I applied for that job. And thankfully, my manager was prepared to train me and knew I was straight out of a PhD and gave me an opportunity, which was fantastic, and I'm absolutely grateful for that. But I didn't know what it was, and it was a steep learning curve, but the skills that I had developed during my PhD were foundational and served me really well. And, in your first job coming out of uni, bosses and managers are not expecting you to come fully trained to be able to do the job that you've been hired for. There is on-the-job training. It is very different to an undergraduate or postgraduate study. And, I always say to students, don't discount any job, because you can learn something from every job. You can build different skill sets, you learn different things. And if you don't like it, then you can change jobs. And that's the advantage of, when you're starting in your career, you can swap around jobs quite easily. If you don't like it, move to a different job. At least now you've figured out what you don't like. So you can at least, that's easier than saying, what do I like? It's much easier to say, right, I don't like that. And then you can explore, and, once you're in the industry, then it gives you insights into what other roles there are in the industry and what you can do with your degree, whether it's a science degree whether it's an engineering degree. You know, I have a project management colleague. He's a mathematician, very smart. And, you know, you kind of like, well, how do you go from being a mathematician to being a drug development scientist? Well, you can. The same foundational skill sets. So keep every opportunity open, and, you know, don't outright refuse a job just because it doesn't fit all your criteria. Every job will teach you a skill set, whether it's a technical skill set or, you know, some of the interpersonal skill sets like management and leadership. So just go with the flow. I like that, Jenny. I really like that.
Thank you. Oh, very good to hear from your experiences, and so reassuring to know that there are always open doors, and we just need to keep going and go through them. And sometimes it takes a couple of doors to figure out which path is for us, and that doesn't matter. It's all good.
It's exactly right. There is so many paths, and you know, people find their ways, and you know, I've been, you know, talking to students for many years now, and they find their way because there are so many opportunities, and it's hard to see them until you're out there. So just have faith.
Yeah, that's right. Definitely good to also not look at something as an end goal as well, and to really enjoy the journey and everything that you have to accumulate along the way.
Yeah, some people though do have an end goal, a very clear end goal, and
yes,
on them, you know, that's fabulous.
For sure.
You know, if they really know what they're doing, all power to them. You know, that wasn't me, unfortunately. It's still not me. At this stage of my career, I still have a manager and a manager of a manager, and we still have development conversation. And what do you want to do in your career? And my poor manager, you know, every year when we have this conversation, I'd say, I don't know. Just, I'm happy doing this at the moment. And when I get bored, then I'll think about something else, but I don't know what that something else is. I'll just see what comes up, right? And that can be frustrating for people, but it's worked for me, right? Might not work for others, but it's worked for me.
Yeah, it's definitely good hearing about your insights and experiences. So it's been lovely chatting to you today, Rose. And thank you so much for sharing everything that you do. And we really, really look forward to, seeing where things take you in the future and the roles that you are to expect and that are coming up for you as well. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Jenny. It's been lovely talking to you.
Wish you all the best in your future endeavours.
Thank you.
Dose of Pharma acknowledges the traditional custodians of the various lands throughout Australia on which we connect today, and pays respect to elders past, present, and future.